I don't remember exactly when the terror began, but I know that at some point I realized I was trapped in a darkness so complete it weighed on me like a physical presence. I cannot recall how I got there, if I walked in of my own accord or was shoved inside by cruel hands. All I know is that I cannot move. My arms and legs feel bound, though I sense no rope or chains. It's more like my body is encased in cement, unyielding and cold. It's horribly quiet at first, so silent that my own heartbeat thunders in my ears. Then, out of nowhere, I start hearing muffled voices above me, whispering, echoing, but I can't make out the words. My mind flutters between panic and confusion, a trapped bird beating its wings against the bars of a tiny cage. Whenever I try to scream, my throat feels raw, as though a thick wad of cotton is lodged behind my tongue. All I manage are strangled gasps that never leave my mouth. The voices drift in and out, sometimes distant, sometimes so close they seem to be brushing against my skin like spider legs. I can't tell how many people are up there. Maybe 2, maybe more. Their tones rise and fall in a conversation I'm desperate to interrupt. "I'm down here," I want to yell. "Help me," but they never respond. At first, I cling to the hope that it's only a matter of time before someone realizes I'm trapped. Yet days, or what I think are days, pass in silent torment with no relief. I begin to suspect I might be going insane. I focus all my efforts on moving a single finger. I concentrate so hard that it feels like my skull will burst from the effort. Even if I can't shout, if I could just tap or scratch, maybe someone would hear me. But my body remains inert. I can feel the limbs. There's no numbness or loss of sensation. It's the strangest thing. My arms and legs are perfectly present, yet unresponsive, as though a thick, invisible net has pinned them down. My mind spins with questions. Where am I? Who are these people I hear? Why can't they hear me? Each question returns no answer, only frustration that accumulates like heavy stones stacked on my chest. After a while, I realize the voices above me speak a language I sometimes recognize. They say my name. I'm almost certain of it. I hear them repeated in soft, broken tones, as if they're testing it against their tongues or praying for my salvation. My relief soars. At least they know me. But then they move on, continuing a conversation in hushed, urgent whispers I cannot decipher. A sinking dread replaces the brief surge of hope. If they know my name and still do not rescue me, something must be terribly wrong. I summon what remains of my courage and push against the confines of my invisible prison, trying with all my might to break free. An iron grip squeezes my heart when I fail yet again. Time in this darkness stretches like taffy. There's no way to mark hours or minutes, only the inconstant presence of voices. I think I hear footsteps sometimes, light and careful, as though the people above me are worried they might disturb something. I wonder if they know I'm just below them, perhaps even see me lying here helpless. The notion horrifies me. Can they see my eyes fluttering, my lips trembling in a silent plea, my tears that slip out in pitiful surrender? Or am I completely hidden away, unseen and untouchable? That thought offers no comfort. Either scenario is a nightmare. I become convinced that I'm in a coffin. The idea hits me like a thunderbolt one night, or day, or whatever it is. The voices grow quieter, more solemn, and I hear someone sobbing. I imagine that I must be buried under the floorboards, or maybe in a crypt or under a stage, some bizarre accident or twisted punishment I can't recall. I keep pushing against that suffocating darkness, bracing for the moment a trickle of light or fresh air might break in. But my efforts remain futile. My voice continues to fail me, and I become an unwitting eavesdropper on these disjointed conversations. Is this what ghosts feel like? Lurking around the living, unable to interact or even prove they exist? My terror evolves into a creeping dread that slips around my mind like a serpent. Sometimes in the brief silences, I swear I hear a soft beeping noise, rhythmic, unchanging, like an electronic metronome. I can't figure out if it's part of my imagination or something real. My sense of time falters further. I might drift off, losing consciousness in this cage, only to reawaken in exactly the same situation. Darkness, numbness, and half-heard voices. It's like a dreadful loop I can never escape. Every so often I hear new people enter and leave. Sometimes the chatter is frantic, like an argument or a crisis. Other times it's calm, subdued, as though they're discussing serious matters that weigh on them heavily. Eventually, my desperation grows savage. I rail in my thoughts, cursing these unseen people who speak above me. Don't they know I'm right here? My silent shrieks bounce around my skull, unstoppable. My throat aches with every attempt at a real scream, but nothing emerges. It's an agony of futility. I feel tears welling in the corners of my eyes, salty and hot, sliding down my temples into what feels like an endless void. Even the sound of my own crying is muffled, strangled by whatever force holds me captive. Is this punishment? Am I in hell? Through the swirl of questions and dread, I notice a shift in the voices one day. There's a trembling sadness to them that makes my heart pound in empathetic alarm. The beeping noise becomes louder, more insistent. I feel a flutter of energy, like everything around me. This unseen prison has been jolted. Something is changing. I hear a familiar voice, one that breaks my heart with longing and confusion. It's my mother's voice. I want to sob in relief. She's here. I can't believe she's here. I try to call out to her, but I'm caught in the same dreadful silence. She doesn't hear me. She keeps talking. She's talking about me. I catch pieces of her words. No improvement. We've done everything. Not what she'd want. My mind reels as I attempt to piece it together. No improvement on what? What does she mean by not what I'd want? There's an urgency in her voice, tinged with resignation and heartbreak. Another voice joins hers, deep, placating, perhaps belonging to a doctor. He explains something in a measured, professional tone. I only catch fragments. Consistent vegetative state and limited brain activity. The weight of what they're saying crushes me. They're talking about me like I'm not really there. A sudden realization slams into me with brutal force. I might be in a hospital bed. The darkness pressing down on me is my own closed eyelids, and the reason I can't move is because my body is unresponsive. I'm not in a coffin or buried in a basement. I'm in a coma, locked inside my mind. In one crippling moment, it all fits. The voices are my family, doctors, maybe nurses coming in to check on me. The reason they can't hear my screams is because they're not physical sounds at all. They live only in my mind. I want to weep, to lash out, to do anything that could make them believe I'm still here. I'm alive, trapped inside a silent prison of flesh. Everything I've experienced, this horrifying solitude, and the inability to communicate, stems from my comatose body. I recall fleeting fragments of an accident, a blinding light, a skid on wet pavement, the crack of bone, then nothing. That was the moment that led me here, locked away, waiting for someone to realize I hadn't gone anywhere at all. As my mother's voice chokes with sobs, my entire being trembles in horror because I sense what comes next. She's talking to the doctor about letting me go, about ending this and pulling the plug. The finality in those words sends me into a frenzy of terror and sorrow. I'm screaming in my mind, trying to thrash my limbs, yearning to force my eyelids open and prove that there's something behind them worth saving. But my body refuses to comply. I remain still and silent, my tears invisible, my screams trapped in the echoing chambers of my own mind. Then I hear it, soft but clear, my mother's final words to me. "I'm sorry," she whispers. "I love you so much, but I can't watch you suffer anymore. Please forgive me." Her voice cracks under the weight of her grief. I focus all my consciousness on my mouth, my lungs, my vocal cords, urging, pleading for a single sound. If I can make just the tiniest noise, maybe they'll reconsider. I strain beyond my limits until every fiber of my being feels on fire, yet nothing happens. I can't move, I can't speak, I can't beg for one more day. My mother's weeping dissolves into the rhythmic beeping of the monitors. The doctor's voice rises once more. "Okay, we'll proceed." Footsteps shuffle around me. Fabric rustles. There is a pause so long I think my own heartbeat might stop from sheer dread. Then, one final click, like a switch being turned off. The beeping flatlines. With that sound, the darkness extends its hands and gently drapes them over my consciousness, drawing me down into its silent depths. My mother's last apology echoes through the collapsing corridors of my mind. Everything goes cold and empty, and I realize this is it. I'm leaving this horror behind, even if it means leaving everything else too. My mother's voice is the last thing I hear, fading into the stillness as the plug is pulled, and I drift into a silence that no one can ever break.